Chapter 13. The Answer. Rowan screamed, waiting for the hot breath, the tearing fangs and claws that would mean death. But they did not come. He uncovered his eyes fearfully. The dragon was very near. It was watching him. Its flat, snake-like eyes stared into his, compelling him. "John!" called Rowan in a low voice without looking away. "Strong John?" "I am here," came the answer. "The creature's tail has me pinned to the wall. I cannot move, Rowan. Save yourself if you can." The dragon growled. It turned its head toward John's voice, then looked back at Rowan. It swayed its huge body and crawled at the soft place in its neck where dried blood-crusted wounds made over many days. Its eyes were red pools of anger and something else. Rowan saw it and in amazement recognized it for what it was. Dumb animal pain. He slowly got to his feet, never breaking his gaze. "What ails you?" he said quietly in the voice he used for the bookshop. The dragon lowered its head and opened its jaws. It moaned deep in its throat. Needle-sharp teeth dripped watery blood on the snow at Rowan's feet. Hot, stinking breath beat in his face. Rowan shrank back, but the dragon again did not strike. "Rowan!" hissed Strong John. "Back away slowly and go. You have the map and the compass. You can get home. You have a chance. Take it." Rowan barely heard him. He was looking at the claw marks around the dragon's neck. An idea, forming in his mind, suddenly became crystal clear. He glanced around the cape. No bones or flesh, just fresh white snow. "You have not been eating," he crooned to the dragon, as if he were talking to Star. "You have not been hunting, yet your jaws drip blood." He met the dragon's eyes. Long ago, in a very different place, and in a pair of very different eyes, he had seen that look before. If he could earn the beast's trust. He made his decision, and took a deep breath. "I think I know what is wrong, and I can help you," he said. "I am a friend. A friend." The dragon stared at him, unblinking. "Be still," said Rowan. He moved closer. He looked into the red and dripping mouth, then leaned inside, farther and farther, till he found what he sought. Look in the fiery jaws of fear and see the answer white and clear. The bone was sharp and white. It had jammed between a tooth and the back of the dragon's throat, as a twig had once caught in Star's throat. Rowan had removed that twig. He could remove this bone. He worked gently, knowing the agony the creature was feeling. The dragon growled. One wrong move and those terrible jaws would snap closed. Little by little, Rowan eased the bone loose. At last, with a delicate twist, he pulled it free. He backed out of the dragon's mouth and toward Strong John, holding the bone in his hand. "Now," he said softly, "now let us go. You are well. You can hunt. Let us—" The dragon's eyes flashed. It rose up on its hind legs. It beat its scaly white wings. At last it was free of the terrible pain that had stilled its roar and quenched its fire for so many days. The pain that had stopped it from hunting, wheeling through the skies above its cloudy kingdom. It was free and hungry. It roared, and the sound was like thunder, beating and echoing around the walls of the lair. Icicles fell from the cave roof, smashing and splintering on the ground, and the ground itself shook. It roared again, and sheets of fire belched from its mouth and nostrils, melting the snow and ice so that steam billowed into the air to mix with flame and choking smoke. Then it turned to John. Hunger burned in its red eyes. It would not yet attack the boy who had healed it with its gentle hands. But the man was a different story. "No!" shouted Rowan. He ran to John's side, slipping and sliding on the now icy floor of the lair. He threw himself down by the helpless man and shielded him with his body. The dragon twisted and roared, and John cried out in agony as the movement crushed him even more firmly against the cavern wall. Rowan pulled out his knife and stabbed desperately at the dragon's tail, but the knife blade bent and broke against the shiny white scales. It was useless. The dragon howled with rage and spat a wall of flame that singed Rowan's hair and eyebrows. Again and again, the flame came at them. They huddled together. "Rowan," groaned John. "Rowan, it is trying to scare you off. It only wants me now. Get out while you can, for Jiller's sake, if not for your own. Rowan, I promised her. I beg of you. Go." But Rowan would not give in. He had to make the dragon move its tail so that John would be free to run. He had to do it before the dragon lost patience and killed them both. but he had no weapons. "What will I do?" he cried out. "I don't know what to do." "Remember well the words you know." "What words? What words?" Rowan whimpered. "Oh, please." "The map." Strong John's voice was faint beside him. "Rowan." Crouching low, Rowan pulled the map from his belt and unrolled it. "Remember well the words you know." The last blank space was filled. The words swam before his eyes. The words he knew indeed. The words that he had heard for the first time with a thrill of dread. The words that had filled his dreams and haunted his thoughts for the long days since. 7 hearts the journey make. 7 ways the hearts will break. Bravest heart will carry on when sleep is death and hope is gone. Look in the fiery jaws of fear and see the answer white and clear. Then throw away all thoughts of home, for only then your quest is done. All the prophecies had come to pass except the last and the most terrible, and now it was time. Rowan rolled up the map and drew John's compass from his pocket. He waited for his moment. Throw away all thoughts of home. The dragon threw back its head and again roared its anger. Its soft neck, scratched and torn by its own claws at its effort to dislodge the choking bone and end the pain, gleamed pale and exposed. And with all the strength and desperation of his fear, Rowan hurled the compass at that white, tender target. It struck like a hard, sharp stone, and the dragon cried and thrashed in pain and fury, tossing its head from side to side, lifting its tail from Strong John's body. Just for a moment, just long enough for Rowan to pull John free, to drag him, sliding over the icy ground, toward the entrance of the lair. Just long enough for him to turn and throw the rolled map hard, straight and spinning, to strike the exposed neck again so that the dragon roared and for a precious seconds turned its head away from them. Throw away all thoughts of home. Then they were running from the lair, to find a place to hide, to burrow like the night animals away from the dragon's rage. For only then your quest is done. Yes, the quest was done and lost as they were. "Mother, star," Rowan sobbed. His heart was breaking, yet still he ran. But the snow before the lair had melted in the dragon's fire, and now the flat surface was a sheet of swimming ice. Rowan and John slipped and fell, their hands failing helplessly, their feet sliding from beneath them as they struggled to rise and run again. The dragon's red eyes burned. It raised itself in anger. Sheets of fire, hot as 100 furnaces, burst from its mouth and nose, scorching their feet, boiling the ice to a hissing mass of water and steam. Rowan and John rolled, crawled, beating at the melting ice, twisting their bodies to save themselves. Then, with a screeching crack, the ice split beneath them, the ice that had formed and lain unmelted all the long days of the dragon's pain, but now at last was feeling the heat of its flames and giving way. The cold, sweet water from the melted snow poured through the ice and into an underground channel that was its old escape from the mountain top, and with it fell John and Rowan, gasping and shocked, tossed like corks in a bubbling rush. Rowan drew breath, struggled to regain his feet. They were beneath the earth, beneath the ice. He could no longer see the dragon. He could no longer see the sky. The water was pushing him. He could not resist it. All was darkness and glassy smooth rock, freezing water and rushing sound. Rowan called for John and grabbed his hand. All at once he knew what had happened. They had found out the secret of the stream. Sweet water foamed around them, pushing them along. They had released it from its icy prison. Now it was free to flow. And flow it would, down through the long steep tunnel that was its track through the mountain's core. And it was taking them with it, down, down to the village of Wren. Val and Ellis had been woken before daybreak by a feeble tapping on the mill-house door. They had opened it to find a nightmare. Alan and Marley, filthy and ragged, nearly fainting from exhaustion and thirst. They had taken them into the mill, bathed their wounds, and given them food and drink. Then they had heard something of the fearful journey the two had shared, as they retraced their steps through the swamp and forest to the cliff top and down to the mountain's foot. They exchanged grave looks as they learned what had happened in the caves. "Strong John was a brave man," Val said at last. "You speak as though he were dead," Alan cried, pulling his cup away. "If he is not," Val replied stolidly, "he soon will be, and Wren with him. He is on the mountain alone. He cannot succeed now, and he cannot survive." "He is not alone," Marley objected. "Rowan is with him." Val and Ellis stared at her as though she were mad. Of what use to John is a scared weakling like Rowan? Val demanded. He needs a strong, courageous companion too. He had 5 strong, courageous companions. Alan lifted his head and looked her straight in the eye. They all ran away. Marley buried her face in her hands. Ellis finally spoke. Dawn is breaking. We must go to Jiller, he muttered. She will be in the bookshelf fields, seeing to the beasts. We must tell her what has happened. With heavy hearts, the 4 left the mill. The sky was golden pink by the time they reached the dried-up pool. They saw Jiller standing there with Aloud, her shawl pulled tightly around her head. She was looking up at the mountain, shivering in the cool wind. Then she turned and saw them. The sadness on her face became terror. She screamed, "Alan! Marley! What has happened? Where is Rowan? Where is Rowan?" At that moment, the roaring from the mountaintop began, and it went on and on and on.